Hello, welcome back. We're continuing our discussion today of A Course in Miracles as a thought system that we learn under the guidance of our inner teacher. And we're looking at an idea today that is a major, major, major step in the right direction for positive transformation. In other words, for awakening. What we all want, ultimately. So let's jump right into it. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a fairly in-depth look at how the Holy Spirit operates. If you've ever been curious about this, this is a valuable conversation that you'll want to pay close attention to. Because the Holy Spirit is your inner teacher. When I refer to your inner teacher, this is what I'm referring to in all of these videos. Your inner teacher is the Holy Spirit. Now, you may not call your inner teacher or your guide the Holy Spirit because of whatever past associations you may have had, and that's okay. It really doesn't make any difference what you call your inner teacher. You may call your inner teacher Mike or Sue or Elvis or anything else. It is only a name. What's important is your ongoing relationship with your inner teacher. Now, you'll no doubt notice that I'm saying inner. Yeah, we're very clear that this teacher is your inner teacher. The Holy Spirit is not some outside agent. The Holy Spirit is not some outside thing that is somehow superior to you and you're inferior. No, that is a separation idea. And if you've ever wondered what the Holy Spirit is, I can relate to that. When I was raised in not one, but two fundamentalist Christian traditions in the United States, I would often find myself looking for answers that no one was able to provide. When I would ask the adults in Sunday school what the Holy Spirit actually was, because I did ask, and how the Holy Spirit operated, because I asked that too, I was often met with a blank stare. And I was also often met with a shrug of the shoulders and, oh, it's just a mystery. Well, actually, it's not a mystery. Let's demystify all of this. The Holy Spirit is part of you, your higher self, capital S, your inner, emphasis on inner teacher to whom you can and ultimately must appeal for guidance. That you could appeal to your inner teacher for guidance on the path right now, today, and you're invited to do so. The Holy Spirit is part of your mind that goes by many names. I mean, no wonder you can call your inner teacher whatever you want, because A Course in Miracles refers to the Holy Spirit in many different ways, including the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's referred to as the voice for God. That's perhaps the most common moniker that we see here in the Course. The voice for God, the universal inspiration. Comforter with a capital C. Friend with a capital F, the answer with a capital A, and so on. Many different ways of looking at your inner teacher, that part of our mind that speaks for God, that speaks truly and waits patiently for us to ask for help. And our inner teacher responds to our slightest invitation, even if it's only for just a split second. That is enough to make what we call here in the world progress on the path, which is what we all wish to do. So how does this work? Well, this part of our mind that speaks for God, the voice for God, keeps and strengthens what is true. In other words, what we allow into our mind that's true, the Holy Spirit keeps and strengthens. What is partially true, and we do this a lot here in the world in our dazed and confused and conflicted mental state, we allow things that are partly true, that have grains of truth, and then nuggets of complete separation and illusion. So those he accepts and purifies, right? And what is untrue, that we allow into our minds, he rejects. A thought such as, I'm an individual self-sustaining survival unit, reject. For example, hatred thoughts, thoughts of revenge and plotting against our neighbor because we're certain that he's out to get us. Is he? I don't know. Thoughts like that, separation thoughts, pure illusion thoughts, are simply rejected. So what's retained for us is only what's true. It's said throughout, of course, in miracles that the only thing in this world of illusion that can really be said to be true are our loving thoughts. Those are the only things that can really be said to actually exist here in this world of complete illusion and constant change. Our loving thoughts, which are kept for us, preserved for us by our inner teacher. They remain in our mind. This is how our inner teacher operates. So whatever your inner teacher rejects, these separation thoughts, the ego accepts gladly and gloms onto and identifies with and gets you to do the same. Through one devious trick or another that we're not even aware of because we're so attenuated to them and ingrained to think that we're individuals. It's a habit that we say in the world dies hard. Now, it's not a difficult one to understand intellectually, is it, that there is no separation of any kind. That's a simple idea, but our ego clinging makes that very difficult. We make this difficult for ourselves. All of the difficulty that we appear to face here in the world is our own making. Remember, this is an adult endeavor. This is not about passing blame onto the weather or the government or a crop failure or an economic situation, a war nearby, a war in another part of the world, artificial intelligence, whatever. It's not about blaming anything or anyone for your current situation. It's an adult endeavor, and it's about taking a look at how our mind operates, because as we run amok in Egoville, we don't know. We don't even stop usually to think about it. So think about what a positive step this even is, that you're watching this video with all the other content out there on YouTube and other channels. I mean, this isn't the only social media channel, that's for sure, but here you are. Yeah, that's a major, major step to your awakening. It is. It is. Just entertaining these ideas instills them in your mind, and they'll come back up even if you put this down immediately and you don't open up A Course in Miracles for another decade or more. You're still thinking about the idea that you're one with God. You're an idea, the thought of God, and ideas leave not your source. Therefore, who are you? You'll think about that for the next decade. Mission accomplished. Now, hopefully, it doesn't take 10 years to go through the next lesson in this course, but you get what I'm saying. The Holy Spirit and the ego are in fundamental disagreement about everything. That's why it's said that we're faced with a choice in the present moment between two thought systems. That's it. We have a choice in the present moment. And it's not one that should be taken as drudgery. We get to choose one or the other. We can choose our own awakening. We can choose love. We can choose the voice for God. We can choose God instead of the ego. We can choose light instead of darkness. We have a choice. These two thought systems are completely opposite, to the point where they don't even communicate with one another. They're opposite in every way, in fundamental disagreement about everything, because they're in fundamental disagreement about what you are. In other words, they're in fundamental disagreement about who you are. Son of God means the thought or extension of God. Like extends like. Love extends only love, not separation, guilt, hatred, and fear. Only love. You've never left your source. This, your inner teacher would teach you and show you. The ego would show you that you're an individual self-sustaining survival unit destined to struggle and strive for what? A more comfortable interim before death. That's what it offers you. Yet there is no death. We're not a body. Even death, which we take to be so real here in the world, yeah, this body's not going to last forever. It's not you. Who you are is, in fact, eternal. And it's not this thing that you see every day when you look in the mirror. The Holy Spirit and the ego are in fundamental disagreement about what you are. So they don't talk. They don't sit down and hash it out. And as long as we adhere to both of them, as long as we vacillate between the two, as long as we don't make up our mind, we suffer because our mind is conflicted, which explains our situation in the world where we feel absolutely blissful and joyful one moment, and then the next moment we're in a fit of rage. And what provoked that? I don't really know. It could be anything, but it's an opportunity for forgiveness. That's the way the Holy Spirit sees it and would have us see it. Ours is to listen to this guidance and act on it. Our inner teacher rejects everything that does not engender joy. The Holy Spirit accepts only what engenders joy. Anything that is not wholly joyous, he rejects, and that is our raw material for forgiveness. Anything that's not wholly joyous. Therefore, the third teaching here of the Holy Spirit in this section of the text is be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. We have this choice in the present moment. Be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. In other words, awareness. Develop, cultivate, and retain an awareness of your experience. And when, not if, of course, but when we get annoyed, that's an opportunity for forgiveness and release. When we're frustrated, sad, anxious, and afraid, those are all opportunities for forgiveness and release. When someone pisses us off, because it's going to happen at some point today, that is an opportunity for forgiveness and release. Part of this is a recognition that there is no separation of any kind, and there never has been. Therefore, there's no separate brother out there. Part of this idea that I keep mentioning here on almost every video is that ideas leave not their source. What this means is you have not left God. Who are you? It means as well that thoughts do not leave the mind of the thinker. That's part of what is meant here by ideas leave not their source. Thoughts don't leave the mind of the thinker. And something that can take a lot of repetition before we accept it is that everything is in our mind. Everything that we see that appears to be out there is in our mind. It hasn't left the mind of the thinker. So when you see something that frustrates and angers you, it's an opportunity to forgive the content of your own mind. When you see something beautiful, it's symbolic of our beauty as Christ. It's symbolic of our joy, our happiness, our limitlessness. And it's an opportunity to note that, and if you wish, to give thanks for that. These beautiful symbols correspond to the difficult symbols. And in order to experience more of the beautiful symbols, in order to awaken from the dream, we develop and retain our vigilance only for God and his kingdom. We can be just as vigilant against the ego as we can be for the ego. It doesn't mean that we kick fear in the face. We don't do that. We simply notice. To do pitched battle with the ego is something that it wants you to do. It's not an opponent. It isn't real. It is an illusion, a mistake, a simple mistake which you could choose to set aside. It does not exist. Doesn't want you to believe this is so. It is so. It does not exist. You can set it aside right now. And when we clobber something or attempt to do combat with it or make it an enemy, we've boom, made it real to ourselves, which is exactly what we don't want to do. So this lesson of the Holy Spirit, be vigilant only for God and his kingdom, contains the word only. So it calls for our consistency. Exactly what we need to develop on the path. This particular idea, when we begin to develop it, is a major step in the right direction. It is, because we're recognizing that there are two thought systems. They're not competing, by the way. The Holy Spirit doesn't compete. There's no competition if there's only oneness. There's no opponent. So there are two thought systems that we choose between. And this is an evaluative choice. We're choosing one instead of the other. And this is what leads us along the path. It leads us toward major transformation because the more we choose the thought system of the Holy Spirit, our inner teacher, the more loving our experience becomes, the more patient we appear to be here. The different interactions we have with people, because we're seeing things as they really are, because we're seeing our brother for who he really is, and therefore seeing ourselves for who we really are. Who are you? You know. You know. Doesn't mean, of course, that you're ready to accept this, but the more you tune in to discussions such as this, the more you connect with your inner teacher, the more ready you will become to put these ideas into practice, because that ultimately is what spirituality is about. Students of this course often state and often complain sometimes, right? That they don't understand this material intellectually. Let me submit this. If you're in that category, this is a different thought system that attempts to write the thought system of the world. The way we currently perceive things in Egoville is upside down. We wish to render them right side up. And that's what your inner teacher is for. That's what this is for. These ideas are very simple, but perhaps the intellectual understanding won't come right away. And here's an alternative to attempting to slog through this course and make it an opponent, a drudgerous, cantankerous opponent, this thing that you have to do. Yeah, no. You could simply do it and leave the intellectual understanding to the side. Forgive the Son of God. Just do the workbook exercises. You don't have to believe them. Jesus tells us that right there in the workbook. You may actively resist them, so you don't have to believe them, but just do them, apply them. In the practical application, the intellectual understanding will actually come. It will come through your experience. This is how we really, really learn, is through experience. And it's our experience of this material that shows us the ideas we're studying are true. And they're very simple, but we're so used to making everything so complicated that a simple idea is one we're prone to reject, or we're prone to be very skeptical of because we think it can't be that simple. So when, not if, but when you find yourself in that situation, let's just emphasize that we learn through practical application. Even this series of videos that I've devoted time to is only a supplement. In fact, it's not in any way, shape, or form intended as a substitute for this course. Oh no, far from it. And even less so is it a substitute for actually doing the work. There is no substitute for actually doing the work. That's how we learn this course. It's how we learn, is by putting it into practice. So if you're frustrated with trying to come to terms with this, with the thinking mind, set the thinking mind aside for a little bit. You might find it's quite a relief because we spend a lot of time in the world and a lot of energy, emotional, physical energy, mental energy. We spend a lot of time and effort attempting to grasp things with our rational thinking mind. We call it rational. It's insane. It's based on a false premise that we're separate from our brother and we're separate from God. We are not. We are not. So really, there's only one problem, separation, and there's one solution. You're learning the solution right now. And we can call it the miracle, true forgiveness, our function to clarify our perception. And we do this with the help of our inner teacher, who is not outside of us. All right. So thank you, as always, for tuning in. The subscription buttons, the red arrow here, feel welcome to hit that and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And questions and comments are always, always more than welcome. So even if you feel like your question is very basic or you should know, that's the kind of question to ask, really. So I do want to invite you to please feel welcome to do that, because there is somebody out there in the world who wants to know the same thing, and they'll be very happy that you asked. It's like sitting in class where everybody feels like they have a question and one person finally raises their hand and has the courage to ask, and then there's this palpable sigh of relief where a bunch of people say, oh yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. I had the same question. You never know. You could be really, really helping and assisting somebody on the other side of the world whom you're not likely to ever meet in person. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing the way we can share ideas. So let's share our inner teacher with everybody. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.